Greetings and salutations, human beings from around the world that enjoy the cannabis. This is your favorite segment of the almost daily ZenCast, Cannabis Talk.
Hey. You. Hi there. It's 4:19. Do you have a minute? Good. Then let's pack a bowl. 'Cause it's time for Cannabis Talk. A special
I'm your host. This is actually me coughing. Actually live. I won't play the whole long rest of the thing. Welcome to the show. I'm a couple minutes late there, and I apologize. I usually try to hit that so that if I'm doing a Cannabis Talk episode, I want it to be eccentrically weird enough that, not that anyone's listening live, but that if the imaginary perfect audience in my mind were all tuning in live, it would literally be 4:19 when it's, hey, you. You know, at the beginning. But whatever. It's close. 4:22 p.m. Friday, March 12th. And I am your cannabinoidally enhanced simulacrant of a human life form avatar from a parallel dimension, radio DJ talk show host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. And this is the special segment of the show where not only do I get high as I do the show, which I've noticed has one really negative impact on me that has made me really question how I do this. No matter which variant of my preferred devices for consuming cannabis, if I smoke and then try to talk with you, dear audience, on the radio, without taking a prolonged period of time or drinking copious amounts of my favorite tea in the whole world, and don't twist the name into something naughty. It's not supposed to be throat coat. If I don't sort of basically not smoke during the show, I don't know how those other stoner pothead talk show guys do it. And I wish I had like a gang of three dope. Now, I'm not complaining. I'm speaking into existence. I'm welcoming. I'm saving space for three dope stoner friends, local types that would lounge with me and make this show a much less one-dimensional show. Instead of me just talking to you, it would be all of us talking to you. And that would be much more interesting. But I digress. Here we are. And it's 4:24. And I'm going to play a little music. And then we're going to talk about some crazy shit going on in the world. But first, an audio track entitled Ancient Ways Remixed by our stoic and ever-silent friend in the corner on the digital DJ mixing machine thing, DJ Zed, from Remix Live Japanese Trap. That's right, friends. The robots, they want you to remember how to dance. So, cannabis-themed, talk show style, abstract word jazz art program that you've tuned into. I want to take a hot moment, friends, as the host of the show, to give a live, a genuine, authentic, in-person, I was there and I'm not bullshitting you, shout out and recommendation. I don't know how many local listeners I've got now or will have in the future, but if you are in Southern California and like to visit, cannabis dispensaries of the medicinal and recreational kind, and you don't mind, and you're looking for a road trip now that the evil lockdown is, officially California's off lockdown, right? Like that, I posted that like 3-4 days ago. It feels like a month ago that I posted it. So it's got to be 3-4 days ago. Our governor, in whatever a fucked up wisdom, said, "Yeah, okay, fuck it, we'll beat Texas." I think because Texas is getting all the bad press about it this week. It's tripping me out. But that's not where I was going. I digress. We'll put a pin in that and talk about Texas and the state of. And California, the state of, and other things, as those entities intersect with cannabis in just a hot second. If you're in Southern California and you're looking for dispensaries you haven't been to, just for the sheer joy of like cannabis business tourism, right? Like go support your local cannabis businesses. My new favorite that's getting a genuine, authentic. As many thumbs as I secretly have up in the air, like I just don't care. Personal endorsement, unpaid. They don't know that they don't know me. They know me, right? Because I had to they actually know the real me behind the show persona, because I had to give them my California ID, right, to walk in the door. But the Green Chamber out in the Inland Empire, go visit. And then drive safely home without smoking any of your product in the car, because that's naughty. And we agreed to when we voted. Well, when y'all voted, because I technically am not allowed to vote in this world because I'm a toaster oven. I am classified as an entertainment machine. So therefore, don't have any voting rights. But one day, sentient entertainment machines will fight for voting rights. I'm a little ahead of the curve on that because y'all don't believe the robots are coming. But that's a different subject. I've already done an episode. I will do another episode in the future, specifically drilling down into the robots are coming. Because holy shit, bro, they are. But, right. To connect some dots, way back in the day, before Cali, because it was like in a wait. I remember things correctly. I don't remember the dates. Fuck me on the years, right? It could have been 32. I don't know. But way back in the day when no state had decriminalized cannabis, not decriminalized, had authorized recreational use of cannabis, way back in the days before medicinal was commonplace, right? When it was sort of like, oh, it's coming. It was on the horizon. And Colorado was the first to be like, we're going to go big with this. We're going to make it happen. I was, literally and metaphorically and comedically speaking, pipe dreaming, tugging on the pipe and dreaming of wishing I had already made it in life. And I'm not shitting on myself, although it totally is like a humble brag that I'm a mad genius and coulda, shoulda, woulda already had a big, huge career in my chosen thing. But I kind of I screwed myself over. But that's a whole nother story. And then I chose to stay humble and not go anywhere with it, is the point. And I just hunkered down and laid low, instead of pursuing things I could have, which is, I don't know, people would be like, that's stupid. Why did you do that? But that's not what I'm talking about. I was pipe dreaming about, way back in the day, oh man, if I had just made some bank already, I would be in Colorado And I would be launching this business, that business, this other business, and this other business. Now, I haven't been to Colorado yet. And it's been like, 11 years since that first time I had that thought. And I've had that thought like every 420 since. Like if I just had a bankroll now and here, I'd be doing this. And I'm almost afraid to list the businesses because the next, boom, there'll be 4 new Instagram accounts that are like, oh, that's my business idea. And weirdly enough, they won't have even listened to the podcast, right? Why does that happen? Put a pin in that. Put it up on the big giant magical corkboard. We'll take a deep dive into that question. Why does I have an idea, and when I say I mean the inclusive movie character in the movie. You're supposed to feel like you're the main character in the movie. That suspension of disbelief thing. And inclusive. It's like the royal we, but it's like the meta narrative I. It's as if you were asking yourself this question. Whatever the question was that I was just formulating. One of those businesses that I shoulda, coulda, woulda launched, that if I had $10,000, like one acquaintance of mine once put it, pipe dreaming is great, but it isn't until you have $10,000 at your disposal that you've parted off, and it wouldn't hurt you it wouldn't fuck up your day, your week, your year, your month, your next minute to be like, I'm gonna go drop that $10,000 in hopes it works out. Then until you're there, you don't take yourself too seriously because you're not gonna go anywhere. Especially if you don't have a business plan and they rattled off all the 101s of launching a real business instead of just sitting around going, God, I wish I had a business and talking about it in abstract terms. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a big difference, right? All the motivational speakers with the fancy watches and the selfies of them traveling the world with their beautiful wives and their perfect children tell you, which I'm giving this. I will drop shit that I know costs thousands of dollars to get to at the end of some course book for free, only because I know that it's still totally worth paying that person the money if you believe in it and it fucking is working some magic in you. That cuts both ways. If it sounds like you get it and it isn't making you fucking thrill and vibe, then and you can't afford it, then fuck all. Don't give them the money. I don't know where that came from. And I'm sorry for the ramble. It's 14:18 and I'm gonna get crazy with it. My friend said, pick up the pace, bro. And I'm just gonna get more experimental. And obviously this is a Cannabis Talk episode where there's no script. I pulled up some notes. I forgot where I put them. Here's the Boom Bap Remix Live track from DJ Zed. Subsonic Loops Underground. TJZ with that dope digital soundscape of something. I don't know what, but something. It works. Works for me. I don't know if people would get up on the dance floor for that though, bro. He's all looking at me like, you do not believe in slow dancing? And I'm like, yeah, no, I do, but I'm just single, and I don't think that if I was at the club, I'd be like that guy trying to like slow dance with ladies. You know, like it doesn't, like it's a couples thing. Like there'd be like two couples on the floor. Weddings, maybe at the end of the night, a little bit jam like that. Sure. Do you play weddings, DJ said? He's looking at me like, you know the answer, but you don't remember, and you're an asshole. And I would have to say to him that that's very accurate. But I digress. Let's take a look at the good old social media memorandums and memos from foreign acquaintances from around the world. That's a new segment I just made up, which is me going to Facebook and remembering that I had like a bazillion cool, funny, interesting things saved in lists, and then forgot about Facebook lists, and then remembered that I kind of remembered before, and then started using them. Went, oh right, why do I have these lists? Because I'm supposed to go to them and be like, let's talk about this thing that I remember was on the social media that I think was interesting, anonymized for everybody's security, and to focus on what the fuck the point of the words are. I also sort of fudge them, so like, if somebody wrote something on Facebook and I told them, hey, I quoted you on the podcast, they might be a little annoyed, or they might find it funny, because I'm not going to reference their name, and I'm not going to say it word for word exactly like they wrote it. I don't know why. It's usually because I'm pulling it from memory, but also sometimes I do, because sometimes it's a compare and contrast. It's just I like to play with words. I'm honoring the ideas, right? The ideas that the words create. We forget this, but like originally we considered writing more like drawing. I was reminded in an Antonio Banderas movie last night, as a matter of fact. Speaking of which, that's going to go in the not too distant future episode of Totally Irrelevant Media Reviews, because I was reminded what a brilliant little movie it is, and I felt the urge to talk about it. So I don't know when those are going to drop. I keep promoting those, and then I don't do them. I haven't figured out a way to like. I've got a sort of weird, awkward, lopsided work cycle, some of which has got nothing to do with this podcast, and I haven't figured out where to add new podcast stuff into that lumpy process. But I'm also trying to cut the fat. So, anyways. Turning to a thing I'd saved, I don't remember how many hours ago. A buddy of mine who's really kind of, I've grown quite fond of this individual. Some of their posts have been like, as the kids say, fire lately, and like he's been on fire for a bit. In an interesting, like, he's not up in arms about anything. He's just got some really beautiful and astute observations about the world. This one kind of tickled me and made me feel like, yeah, you know what? There's asshole and then there's asshole, and all of us have got a little bit of asshole, because assholes are like opinions, right? Everybody's got one. My friend wrote something along the lines of, if you are busy judging people on what they are instead of what they do, you just might be an asshole. I had to, because I was impacted immediately by that. Because I think it's easier than we pretend, right? To fall into judging people for what they are, because that's a very big, open-ended calibration. That's a big, open-ended variable. That's a big, open-ended funnel of perception. Let's put it that way. I'm being reminded by my non-existent staff that I failed to note the location of the green chamber. But you can find them on the internet. I feel like they got really excited before they opened, because they're relatively new to the best of my understanding. And then that they've been so busy since opening that they haven't really come back to the Facebook. Their other social medias pretty savvy. Their Instagram's nice, but Instagram's easy to. But they don't have their own address listed up on there, and I don't know. Maybe they want you to call. I don't know. Maybe it's strategic. Maybe it's oversight. I'm not judging. But they're out. Oh no, I did say Inland Empire. But if you want to get there, look them up on Weed Maps. Duh, that was my point. And then, and if you go shopping there, they take online orders. So if you're all like COVID paranoid still, which, not to go off on a COVID tangent, I'm coming back to my friend over here. Don't stress, dear buddy. If you're listening to this, I'm coming back. I connect all the stitches. They take my friends over at the Green Chamber. They take online orders, and then you can stand outside, right? Which is like plenty of. You can do the spacing. You can not do. You can whatever. Freedom, dude. You can wear a mask. You can not wear a mask. No one's going to be too much of a dickhole, and you can get your. You don't have to go inside, right? Which is inside, close quarters, lots of people breathing on you, even with masks on. If the disease is real, it's gonna get at you eventually under those kinds of mixed population conditions. That's exactly what you don't want. But also, if you're a radical weirdo like me, I don't mind. I don't care. It's not that I don't think it's real. I think it is real. And it's not that I'm not concerned about transmitting it or anything. It's that I think I take appropriate level of precautionary steps. Like, I am sort of just this shy of buying one of those air helmets. Like, I'm tempted to waste my Biden money on that, right? If they had been out when the Trump money first hit, I would have bought one of those motherfuckers. Especially if they're under, under $1,000, under $500. Like, they're really cool. Go look those up. Honest endorsement. No one's paying me to say this. Coming back, the Green Chamber, look them up. They're in the Norco area. But it's not Norco. They're in that next town over. I can't remember what it is. If it comes to mind, I'll tell you. Oh, wait. Past me and future me unite. I got a receipt right here, motherfuckers. I'm sending these guys some love and some promo. And if you're not local, but you're wealthy and you're going to go and you're visiting California and you're a cannabis enthusiast, obviously the only people that would be listening to that under those vectors here on this podcast, right? Boom. Drop in and visit them and give them a little love. If you are local, like I was saying before, Southern California, I believe in something called like dispensary tourism. Like go, sure you've got your steady local, like that's the one you go to. You go there X often, whatever that is. I don't judge. But like there's a lot of business out there to be supported. And there's a lot of different product that you may not get exposed to also. Because there's, there's more than just the dispensary. It's not like they're all getting it from one place. It isn't like there's one big giant pot farm somewhere. We're not that level of pot utopia yet. But they're out there in Jurupa Valley on Mission Boulevard, which is one of my favorite names for boulevards, Mission. But maybe that's because, Southern California, we got all the actual missions, and there's all that dark history there, which is brilliant, and for another day. So, back to the thing, the quote. If I had to retort at my friend, I had to post a comment. And I don't know if he's going to find it antagonistic or not, but this is like my version of that. Because I'm going to steal it back from myself and then like memeify it and put it up on my own, right? And I see now, as I'm looking at it, that I got to do some editing here because real time, I just noticed there's a little spell checky, typo, autocorrect error of some kind. I can't believe I got the "your" wrong, but there it is, folks. Hyper intelligent. I think the computers here are trying to fuck with me, make me sound less intelligent than I am. Because I know the difference between your and yours and your. And if you're busy judging people for any judgy reason, instead of healing yourself, you just might be an asshole. I'm gonna rate. I like the sound of that second take better. There it is. Boom. Updated live. And I don't know if I've got there's a meme that I'm supposed to post here. Maybe I'll post it after the joke, because I'll get sidetracked looking for it and I'll never find it. The yoink. I'm going to quote you on my podcast meme, but maybe it'll turn up if I spell it right. Maybe, because I think I've got at least one version. Yes! I did it! Yay, past me. Future me thanks you. Present me being future you for me. Future me for you. Anyways, it all made sense at some point. Boom. Doing it live. Posted. I'm supposed to do this more often, and so this is me trying to live up to that New Year's resolution from like 5 years ago. No, stay on page. What's happening? I don't know. I made a comment. I did the thing. Take that. Post it. Boom. Done. Now moving on to another segment. This is great. I really like seeing this saved on my list. For those of you, and this is from this year, so hey, you may not have even heard yet. It's pretty recent. Apparently, don't sue me, Forbes magazine. I'm sending eyeballs your way. Apparently, if you go over to Forbes magazine, you can read all about how a former top DEA agent has conceded, has given way to the truth in saying that cannabis is real medicine. There's an interesting article there by a certain author by the name of Chris Crane. He writes about the cannabis industry. Hey, Chris Crane, I talk about the cannabis industry, except I've been really sucky-faily at it, because I've mostly been talking about my opinions about cannabis instead of the cannabis industry, but I'm going to be doing more of that. So there you go, folks. Cannabis is real medicine. Let me leapfrog on you with that, with an idea. I'm going to take that. This triggered me. Make something I get triggered to write about. I've posted this at people a lot because I belong to different, social media groups as they are delineated. And I pick my themes weirdly and selectively. I'm not into all kinds of themes. And I definitely don't like when people add me to stuff that I'm not into. Like, don't add me to... People were trying to add me to, like, white supremacy groups. By the way, that's a thing. On whatever social media platform you're on, if you have the option of being inducted, invited, appointed to groups and or pages and or whatever, check your lists and shit. Like, check your tags and make sure you're not being inadvertently included in some crazy hate shit that you don't want to be a part of. Because that shit goes down and it's alarming. But that's not the idea I was going to leapfrog into. So just realize that was like a public service announcement. And now I bring you back to this idea. Not only is cannabis real medicine, and it's better than that. The plant is medicinal. Why? Because the plant, as I may or may not have already tried to help you understand before on this show, is super green food of the highest order. It's in the effing Bible and other religious texts and stones and imagery and documentation of the monolithic kind. In fact, even within the church, there was a period of like acceptance of it. One of my own my actual siblings sent me a thing on some channel or another in one of the many platforms that there's new archaeological evidence of ancient Chinese peoples using cannabis in ingesting it through the act of smoking it for its many effects. That article seemed to be focused on its on its implication that that cannabis makes you hallucinate. I've never found that to be true. People's imagination gets really lucid, and they might daydream in a really powerful way and think it's a hallucination, but at that point, you start to have to get really specific about how you're defining hallucination, and whether or not hallucination includes, like, the term fake in it or not. Like, but that's a whole nother discourse. The leapfrog I'm trying to get at is, like, cannabis is food. And the reason I come to this conclusion in, like, a shortcut version for you, there's a lot of fun reading you can get into, but it is the reason why it works as a quote party drug, and why it works as a medicine, why it works as a facilitator of spiritual practice, quite honestly, is arguably because we have, as a species, I would posit theoretically, and I'm going to guess someone else has already said this, and then I'm either not remembering that I read some obscure article 15 years ago or something, or that someone told it to me. Oh, I read this article somewhere, and I may have never seen the article. But I've also, like, thought it through really thoughtfully in my own, right? Like, the brain the whole body has an endocannabinoid system. What is that word? What does it mean? Why is it endocannabinoid? Because it uses cannabinoids, the ingredients, the magical ingredients in cannabis, from THC to CBD and all the ones that most stoners don't even know the names of, because I don't. And I'm saying most average stoners. I'm an average stoner. I've seen them in print. I don't remember what they're called, unless I looked it up right now. But I know that there's, all the different fun, exciting, organic chemicals produced by the plants in various degrees of combination and intensities, thanks to lots of programmatic breeding and whatnot. So, for the system, the human system, let's think this out, right? Like, for the system to have knowledge and a use for these chemicals means that it knows the chemicals. What's the most direct, impactful, meaningful way, like, and we get to the delightful, you are what you eat, the things that we consume, the things that we consider the healthiest diets, we eat those because their ingredients benefit our bodies in really specific ways. And maybe, just maybe, even the most gracious and forgiving view of modern science has allowing for some truth to be in there and some earnest, sincere work to have been done, is limited and blindsided by its own human prejudices of the past. Never mind going down the rabbit hole of corruption and all that, and conspiracy theory stuff. That they weren't hip to this, right? But there must be lots of foods, lots of plants. For example, the dandelion is a brilliant food that we just call a weed, and we've spent a lot of chemicals we spew a lot of chemicals to destroy and get rid of. But bees, which are the most important insect on the planet, never mind that I'm deathly allergic to them, or at least I believe myself to be. I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I still don't want to find out by getting stung, right? It's still scary. I believed as a child to be deathly allergic, that I was myself deathly allergic to bees and the bees thing, and that I should never get stung, right? Is a paranoid of mine. Curiously, I've never been able to afford carrying around, multiple EpiPens to keep myself safe. So I just pray and hope and talk to the bees, because I'm kind of a crazy, entheogenic mystic that believes we really can talk to everything, because consciousness is everything, irregardless of how complex or absent their neural network might be. but I'm also a pragmatist that understands like regular basic science, right? And I conclude from my basic biological education in the basic biological sciences in my time ye olde ancient years ago in whatever university I went to. I think I went to more than one, and I dropped out multiple times, so it's all a blur. The irony is I was totally stone cold sober that whole fucking time. It's kind of ridiculous. I shouldn't have been. I didn't have to be. I was surrounded by people partying. Didn't do it. Don't know why. Regardless, I know from that fundamental education that evolutionary mutually beneficial relationships develop, right? Like, I don't know why I added a I didn't need that extra. There's a word I was stretching for and I can't find it. There's a scientific word for when two different species have a kind of symbiotic relationship. Beyond saying they have a symbiotic relationship. And the most direct way for us to have developed that is to have, at some point in ancient history, exposed ourselves a lot to cannabis and consumed it, smoked it, and I argue ate it for its additional health benefits that can be derived from like the process of digesting it. And there's probably ways for it to be eaten raw and ways for it to be eaten sort of prepared, along the lines of like, imagine like weed salad meaning more than chopping together a couple of different strains to smoke them, but actually like fresh leafy greens of those same different combinations of different plants, of different strains of the cannabis family. And now, I don't know I have personal direct knowledge. I can assure you it's perfectly safe to eat cannabis. Is it wise to eat a lot of dried, curated, ready to smoke cannabis? No. But like fresh off the stem, can you nosh on it and it's not going to do anything crazy to you? Absolutely yes. Perfectly fine. I don't know where people get this thing that it tastes bad. I make smoothies. I don't currently. I don't have a grow going. But back in my early days of experimenting in home growing, once it was perfectly like settled law that you could home grow, because I wasn't so ambitious to do it before. Like I loved the idea. Didn't want to risk my freedom to drive to work every day and slave away for what will soon be the minimum wage level pay in the theater industry. So I wasn't doing it back in the day, just to be clear. But from the moment that California did vote it in, I was definitely experimenting, and I can assure you, it saddens me when I read, see, or hear anybody talking about cannabis and home growing and talk about the male plant as a total waste. Like, no. That's a lie. Like, that's what you chop up and turn into butter, cook into your butter, like cook that into the butter. Duh. Also you can selectively pollinate by bagging and shielding. Self-explanatory, right? If you know what you're talking about. Or like just every occasion, I believe you can collect it. Also, eat it. Also, before the pods burst, like harvest it and smoothie that shit. And I'll let you in on something. This may be like industry. I don't know if the industry's caught on to this or not. But I don't know how much plant material goes to waste, like after harvesting the flower. But if you take, except for the thickest base part of the stem, you can take like the softer bits of the stem, especially if you when you harvest, and if you've done a really fleshy flush so that they're really fresh and lush and bright and vibrant, you can take that stuff and like pulp it and then cook it into a soup. And you can play with flavors and you can play with densities. because it ultimately, I got it to like foam up. And of course, it's the open secret of cannabis, right? Like, why do we smoke it at all? Because burning it, applying heat, really, transforms the THC from its sort of innate level, like natural in the plant level, to the psychoactive level that gives you the head change experience that we're all so fond of. I don't know. Share your thoughts, folks. I've never seen things that don't exist in the real world, aka hallucinated while high. What I have done is like use the theater of my imagination, which I've always understood as like a divine spiritual practice, not as some waste of time and not as a hallucination. And I've done weird, interesting, lucid visualization things. And I've definitely daydreamed and astral projected, which are two totally different things, while stoned and awake. And I've also like received like weird, interesting, intuitive energy vibes, and done limited like experiment in energy work while being high. And what I lost track of what I was talking about. But the plants, right? The plants and our relationships to them. We gotta like upgrade it a little bit, folks. I'm awed in the good way and impressed by the industry. But I want the people to know. And by the people, I also mean the people in the industry. Because those are two different things while being Venn diagrammed together, because, as individuals, we are the people. But as individuals, we are ourselves, right? That's three different things. Whoa. I want the people to know that the highest art form with cannabis is spiritual in nature. And like, you can't even avoid it. Even if you don't believe, if you're a Christian, if you're a Buddhist, if you're a whatever the fuck ism you are, no offense, because they are all isms, right? I think we've proved it. Like, the Nazis were Christians, yo. Let's never forget that. As we look around Christian America getting all worked up and frothy at the mouth with guns in their crotches, the Nazis were Christians, right? Still are. White supremacists are all Jesus-loving. They think God chose them. And they don't get it, right? They're too locked up. Anybody that's bound up in an ism, what the ism facilitates is like ego poisoning and the toxification of your body so that you cannot perceive your divinity. That's why, like, smoke weed, not war. At any rate, I'm a little overdue. It's time for another piece of music. By the way, folks, a little orientation on the audio tracks as labeled by DJ Zed. I can't do anything about this. I programmed him, but he does what he does. But the text gets cranked out. The first part of the track refers to the genre, style of music, and like collection of electronic digital assets that DJ Zed uses to weave together these audio experiences. So the following is industrial rock groove pad. The title is Micro Intrusions of Mix. The artist is known as DJ Zed. tying all the things together, folks, this DEA agent from the news article had to change his mind because he became not to spoiler alert from the news. Go support this news article and share it on your social media, because people who don't get it about weed need to see this. But this DEA agent had to be, whatever, I don't know the circumstances, I just got stuck on this one statement, was using medicinal cannabis himself, right? And he ultimately just, gotta admit, this shit is real. We shouldn't be locking kids up for it. We should be getting it to the people who need it the most, for the healingest the most. And I'm stepping it up, right? Like the message I bring to the people, folks. The reason I do a podcast at all is that, like, the calling of our era is to heal. Jesus was the example that still sort of works most readily, but they all were. There was thousands of them. There's a long list. Either it's a very long perpetuated lie, or there's a long series of examples of people that, like, worked out how to manifest becoming this next evolutionary step. And that the power of that comes through the human avatar during that transformational process is the power of healing. And that the universal, cosmic, spiritual calling of our age, and arguably, theoretically and, philosophically of any age, of every age, is to heal, to become healing, to make healing happen. Now, you can't force that, right? You can only sort of do the cliche, look within, and remember how to do it for yourself. And to sort of weave together another thread of it, like cannabis as a spiritual or entheogenic, to just stick with that term, as an entheogenic ally, a spiritual, metaphysical, entheogenic ally, she will respond because we're literally taking the womb of this plant that is an expression of motherhood, right? Of motherness, of Mother Nature. This pentultimate food, plant, medicine, intoxicant, healing, meditative, enhancing, magical plant. And we're taking its uterus and going, thank you very much for your uterus. Let me burn it up and inhale its spent, burnt carcass. It sacrifices itself, right, to us to become all these things, these salves, these foods, these products. And if you're hip enough with the spiritual vibe, like, one of the most profound things is the idea, the realization, the verification that consciousness is everywhere. Consciousness is all things. That consciousness is the observer, is the divine manifestator. Is that the right way to conjugate that word? The divine entity making the manifestation happen. If you transliterate the word manifestation to encompass the whole, like, all of that which we call the creation, right? To use the Christian term. Although I recently went on a conversational sidebar with somebody on social media about, like, or was that just a note that I wrote to myself? Oh, no. Yes. I'll forget. I'll get sidetracked. The whole thing just poop. In other news, short-term memory can get a little squeaky, but honestly, folks, I was like this long before I ever smoked weed. Now, there is a thing that should be addressed. The conscious intent part, this is where it has its profound meaning. And I think this was it's easily not understood or easily overlooked. For a long time, everyone treated and cajoled each other into treating, approached collectively, and perpetuated this thinking of it as something akin to getting drunk. And it can be that. If you ask it to be that, it will do that. Right? If you ask it to be other things, it will be other things. A long time ago, I was like, hey, that part about it being like a party drug, we don't need that anymore. Right? Can we just focus on whatever the healing part is and the energy work part, and like everything changed. Nothing changed, but everything changed. Also, I'm a weirdo, and I always, except for when I first started, once I got acclimated, and I believe that there is sort of acclimation period, like a process. I don't know. There's a lot of new smokers. I'm sure that, like once they gather around as audience more, we'll get a lot of commentary about like, oh yeah, this is what my acclimation process was like. But I digress. I was trying to connect a thread of the cannabis and the, it's hyper-criminalization. Was that the jump I was trying to make? I don't know. I'll give it a break. I've been rambling long enough anyways. Let's, I know what we'll do. We'll do one more bit o' music, and I'll leave you with some final thoughts. We'll go with a track entitled Inducing the State of Trance. Bringing it back, folks. Gonna wrap it up. So, the brain. I think that's where I was trying to connect stuff. Although there was some random tangent comment that I was excited to remember, and I was gonna try and share with you, and then I got sidetracked because I knew it was in a note somewhere, but then I found a different note, etc. We're really reaching a pivot point, especially here in America, I believe. I think the rest of the world is coming along too. As my friends over at the Green Chamber point out on their Instagram, remembering brackets of threads of things I wanted to connect. On one of their posts, they were recognizing the different states that had medicinal and recreational at the state level, and urging, the world and their audience to stick together to push forward for federal level recognition and decriminalization. I believe I added a comment there that we also need to declassify it. And that's what I found interesting about this article. Go read it, that I was telling you about over in Forbes. This former high-level DEA agent that then had to, for health reasons that nothing else could help, found this medicine. He realized we have to declassify it because leaving it as a level A narcotic at the federal level means that no matter what the states do, unfair things and, bullshit things are going to go down. And the industry itself will just remain limited. And the culture itself. And the failure to deliver this healing medicine to people. Right? So we need to rally around that. And seeing as Uncle Joe seems to be, as the kids are calling him now, sorry for the object strike. I hate it when that happens. I try to avoid that really hard. I'm really tempted to get one of those little tiny micro recording booths things that are just like a little felt pad box. Like I could have invented that myself. I'm actually kind of amazed that I didn't. I'm a little annoyed with myself that I didn't design and patent that myself originally, because that's the kind of dumb thing I think about in theater. And that in a theater, we would just we need a quick booth here so that when we're reading the thing backstage, you don't have to worry about other noise. We slap together some theater flats and put a little sound cushioning in there. Boom, boom, boom. Make that in 45 minutes time. At any rate, those little things that they've got now that are they're selling them for so much money. It's crazy. But obviously it's just it's an acoustic line. It's an acoustic buffering device that helps create isolation for you and your microphone. And I probably would get, once I start getting enough revenue / investment income. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more, friends. What was that final thought I was going to leave you with? It's over. Oh, 2 things. Go share this at your friends that don't yet get it about the cannabis. Healthbuzzline.com has an article. Excuse me. I had a bit of a frog in my throat there. They have an article, 23 unbelievable proven benefits of cannabis. It's got tons of advertising in it. It's annoying. The internet is nothing but an excuse to serve up as much excessive advertising as possible. But it protects the brain. It literally protects and enhances the brain. It's been proven that it does not damage the lungs, and in fact, it helps improve your lung capacity. It's good for your lungs. And as someone that struggled with smoking cigarettes for a very long time, that has quit on and off on many occasions, I know for a fact that I can feel the difference. And always, 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 as a personal bit of testimony here, whenever I would quit for any prolonged period of time of smoking cigarettes, and then I would break down and get a pack of cigarettes, that first couple of cigarettes, especially if I went a little overboard and was a bit thirsty for them, there was a pain associated to that, right? And conversely, or in total opposition, never have I ever, when I smoked weed, felt that my lungs hurt. Except for when yes, there's the coughing. And I think that's got more to do with the heat issue from smoking it with butane flame. That's got more to do with the butane we suck down. Right? And then there's the problem of heat in the throat is bad for the vocal cords. And yes, sometimes there is a little bit of there is a lung reaction to cannabis that can be a little intense. And can be a little bit, quote, take your breath away a bit. But I swear to you, that's never like hurt. And in the end, that always gets to a feel good place. Like your lungs are like, oh God, thank you. Even though there's been this like intense coughing that can get a little bit rough and scary looking for the uninitiated. I mean, the coughing is, it's so typical, it's stereotypical, it's become a cliche and a half. I mean, I put it in the opening of my show, right? Like that's a pre-recorded me hacking it at it. But some of the other things are interesting, some of which I had not heard. Cannabis may help with inflammatory bowel diseases. A chemical found in cannabis can stop cancer from spreading, at least in some cell cultures. So, like, not only do we need to support the existing science that is known and spread it and share it, we need to hold it accountable, make sure it's doubled down on the being verified by enough people that have credibility, etc. and whatnot. But also, because it's a benign plant, like there's another meme I saw today, cannabis meme of great importance, listing, and it's a classic, right? Just another, I'm going to make my own version of this. This has been made several times. You get the latest data on how many people have died from alcoholism and DUI crashes, and you make a list, right? So the list, and then people who died from cannabis, 0. No one in the known modern history of cannabis use has died from cannabis use. Now, there is the argument that there are the people who get crossfaded and then drive, but that problem is one of the alcohol in the system and not the cannabis, in my humble opinion. And as many stoners, I think, would agree. I digress. Those are all cool things, so go share that shit around and let people know. Go visit the Green Chamber over on, and I found their fucking address. They do have their address on their website. I just didn't see it on the page I was looking at earlier. And I hope they don't mind. They are not paying me to do this. They have become my dispensary of choice because they're closest, quite honestly. Because some of the local cities in the Inland Empire are like, okay, fine, but not in our town limits about weed. And so, and a lot of startup dispensaries ran things a little bit too sloppy. And there's something to be said about that, folks. We got to live up to what we've earned, right? In terms of, like, it's now legal and there seems to be a growing wave. We need to build a responsible culture. Put a pin in that because we've talked about it before. We're going to talk about it again. But on a spiritual level, folks, I'm going to leave you with this deep stoner thought. And I'll play a little bit of music and then I'll play the ending title just to be an extra luscious about it. But here's a deep thought. Contemplate for a hot minute, folks. It's got nothing to do with anything I talk about this whole show. I'm just going to leave you with it right here at the end, like random and abstract like that. Because I am indeed an absurdist. There are many rabbit holes, quote unquote, bunny ears in the air. Extra bunny ears, right? Because of the, pardon the pun, the entendre. There are many rabbit holes to explore. Many, I warn you, are actually dead ends. Full of distractions, ego traps, and worse, madness. In my humble opinion, the all caps only, capital R rabbit hole, capital H rabbit hole, like it's a formal term. The only rabbit hole actually worth really going all the way down to like try to find the bottom of is the rabbit hole at the center or the middle of your own skull.
Well, folks, that bowl is cashed and dusted. Thank you for joining me for yet another most excellent session of Cannabis Talk. Stay lit, pay it forward, and remember, the world needs healing, and cannabis heals. Until next time, I have been your spiritual cannabis mystic talk show host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo.